Thank you very much, David, for the introduction. I want to thank first the Miami Herald, the World Bank, Florida International University, Comprehensive Health Center, the state of Florida, anybody else who had anything to do with this conference. I have read the program, and I only regret I could not be here for all of it. I think this is really important. I have to say I am indebted to the Miami Herald for many things. You know, every politician likes to gripe about the press. You probably noticed that, haven't you? But if you read the Miami Herald every day, it'll restore your faith in the profession of journalism and in the importance of it. Because whatever their political views, and when I was president, whether they agreed with me or disagreed, I always knew they were interested in the substance and what the impact of public decisions were on people's lives and on the future. And I told David on the way in, I was particularly grateful for the recent editorial I read in the Herald, strongly urging the United States to grant temporary protected status to the 30,000 Haitians who are here. I am pushing that hard. I know the Secretary of State agrees with that position. It is a decision for the Secretary of Homeland Security. And I know exactly what's going on. And I haven't had any further conversations other than to express my opinion, but I think what's going on is that they think, okay, we ought to do this for Haiti, but how do we do it and not open some floodgate? How do we draw distinctions? I think the natural disasters give us a way to do it. But for all of you that have any interest in this, if you want to communicate your views to the White House, to the Department of Homeland Security, I think the case on the merits is clear. What we have to do is tell them how they can do this without adding to the already considerable problems that the administration has across a wide range of challenges, from healthcare to climate change to Afghanistan, and you know all the rest. So for whatever it's worth, I'm very grateful. I'm also grateful to have an excuse to come back to the Biltmore, where I have spent many happy hours on the golf course. And when I walked in today, the people who came with me said, we must have been out of our minds. We could have come here 4 hours ago and played a round of golf and then made this speech. In fact, we couldn't have, but it's a nice thought. As David has said, this conference comes at a perfect time for me in my current role and responsibilities, both because we just finished our 5th annual meeting of the Global Initiative in New York, which we have at the opening of the UN every year so we can get world leaders to join with business leaders and philanthropists and non-governmental groups from all over the world. We fly in people every year from the poorest countries in the world to sit and have conversations. And this year we had exactly one speech. The president got to give a speech. The Secretary General of the UN comes, they get to give a speech. Everything else is panels and conversations. We had, in one little room, we had a meeting on the future of the electric car. And it was the most fascinating conversation you ever heard. And there were people in that room who believed that within 10 years, we will have as many car companies in America as we had 100 years ago at the dawn of the automobile era, because there are fewer moving parts in electric motors, and it'll be part of an explosion of entrepreneurial activity, assuming we do it right. And that's just one example. But there were $260 million worth of commitments made for Haiti, and I'll say more about that in a minute. I want to try to put this first, this Haitian mission I undertook for the UN, in the larger context of what I see going on in Latin America. Even before the economic crisis, which began last September 15th with the collapse of Lehman Brothers and rapidly spread across the world, proving once again what an interdependent world we live in, for good and ill. There was a profound crisis of globalization, manifest both in the United States and in Latin America. The modern world has been good to most of us, or we wouldn't be sitting in this room today. But it is troubled by 3 problems. It is, by and large, profoundly unequal. It is unstable, as you see in the worries we have in getting enough vaccine for the flus that may spread across the world, if you see, and you saw in the global financial crisis, and you see in the ability of terrorist groups to strike far from home and cross national borders. And it is unsustainable because of the threat of global warming. So any long-term commitment we have to Latin America has to face the fact that before the financial crisis, the United States had all these problems in multiples of 100. We had, before the financial crisis, median family income in the United States after inflation was $2,000 a year lower than it was the day I left office. Partly because we hadn't created enough jobs, partly because all the profits of businesses that could be put back into workers were going into health care costs. And I don't want to get off in that debate, but I'll just say this. I have heard more things said that sound like a broken record than I ever thought I'd hear. But we in America are crippled in our ability to help our friends in Latin America, partly because we insist on spending almost 17% of our income on health care when none of our competitors spends more than 10.5%. That's Canada. Most every other rich country is between 9 and 10.5%. Everybody else insures 100% of the people. We insure 84%. And our overall health ranking is 36th in the world. Colombia's is 22nd. And we actually have people in America now seriously arguing that we couldn't afford to change this because it's so wonderful. It is wonderful in some ways. If you need a heart transplant, I'm Exhibit A. This is a place to come. But if you're thinking about the welfare of the public at large, we are in a very difficult position. We need more money to invest in our own education, in our own health research, and our own rebuilding our economy, and we should be giving more assistance to our neighbors.